Hello, today I'm joined with Roxane Itier, and we'll be asking her some questions today to get to know her a little bit better. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, thank you for having me. So I'm Roxane Itier. I'm a member of the cognitive neuroscience area in the Department of Psychology at University of Waterloo. And yeah, I focus on brain recordings and social cognition, the neurobasis of social cognition.
Awesome, and we'll just jump right into the questions. And the first question I wanted to ask is, what initially sparked your interest in psychology?
So initially, my training is actually molecular biology and genetics. So I'm not a trained psychologist like some of my colleagues, but I did a little bit of psychology during my master, and it was really interesting to me, especially the brain part. So I got really excited, and then I just wanted to do graduate school in that area after listening to some presentations on autism and face perception. So it was face perception from the get-go, really, for me.
Awesome. Would you like to describe your area of research for us?
Sure. So I have several aspects in my research, but the main two ones are face perception and then social cognition, and then how the two are linked, basically. So when I talk about face perception, I'm really interested in the neural processes associated with decoding information from the face. So for instance, how do we recognize a person? How do we spot a different identity in a crowd? How do we recognize facial expression? How do we perceive gaze direction? And how do we use that in our social interaction? And then the social cognition part is a little bit more cognitive, although I'm still interested in the neural aspect of these processes. And I've developed a little bit of research more recently on empathy. So more higher cognitive processes, but they're still linked with how we decode the face in the first place, really.
Yeah.
And some of the relevance of that, because that's often what people wonder, is people have to realize that we can lose specifically the ability to recognize face identity, for instance, in prosopagnosia, or disorders such as autism spectrum disorder, present often with a difficulty in recognizing identity or facial expression and navigating the social world. And it all starts with some differences in the way we're processing the face. So that really is what I, got really excited about when I started my research.
Yeah.
And still what I do.
Yeah, for sure. And moving on to the next question, I'd like to get a bit more personal. So could you describe your background and how you ended up in Canada?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm originally from France, although my background is a little bit all over the place. So I actually grew up in Africa. I was born in Ivory Coast, spent 14 years there, then moved to France, spent my high school really in the beginning of my university life in Grenoble in the Alps, which is where I did more molecular biology and genetics. And then I had this amazing opportunity with my university to do an exchange program. So getting the diploma from France, but actually moving to McGill. So it was really exciting at the time for me. It was very new, being exposed to a different city, to a different language. So it was all in English, and definitely different areas, essentially cognitive neuroscience that I didn't have access to in my university in France. That really where everything started. And then I went back to France, did my master in Paris, and then moved down to Toulouse, France again, to do my PhD. And then I ended up doing a fantastic postdoc at the Rotman Research Institute in Toronto. So that's how I ended up in Canada being a postdoc, basically. And then I started looking for a faculty job in this area, and I was interviewed for Waterloo, and I got the position at Waterloo, and I was actually very fortunate. I was a Canada Research Chair for 10 years in cognitive neuroscience here at Waterloo. So in a nutshell, this is my background.
Awesome, nice. And to end it all off, I suppose, could you share some of the things you do in your free time, like any hobbies or anything that you like to do?
Yeah, so I like reading, although I haven't done that in a long time because work has crippled a little bit too much in my personal life. But I love painting. I've started painting again. My first canvas during the pandemic after 20 years of non-painting. So I love traveling, although this has been, definitely slowed down by the pandemic. But yeah, I used to travel quite a lot. And I love hiking and swimming. Swimming would be one of my favorite activities.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all the questions I have today. Thank you so much for joining me and answering some of these questions that I have. It was lovely talking to you.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.